Moral support. Yeah, one first. You know, sir.
Go ahead and call the meeting to order. But before we take the roll call, I do want to take a moment to congratulate our newest commissioner, Mr. Mark Aubrey Cole, who joined, was officially nominated and appointed by the governor, still pending Senate confirmation in light of the new Senate confirmation rules, but will be seated until such time as that confirmation takes place. We anticipate during this legislative session. I want to commit and recognize him and welcome him to the commission and tell him to get ready for some hard work.
That'd help.
Let's take a roll call, please.
Brian Crawford,
Present.
Aubrey Cole,
Present.
Monty Matalago,
Present.
Vernell Neville,
Present.
Eunice Simeon,
Present.
Jared Ricky,
Present.
Lenore Feeney. Here. Jason Hanneman
Present.
and Erica Dorsey. Present.
I'd like to recognize the moment of silence.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any requests to address the commission?
We did not, Mr. Chairman.
We'll move on to item 5, business items on the agenda. I'd like to make a motion to move item 5 on the agenda up to item number 2. Ms. Falcon needs to leave out a little bit earlier today to attend to some other matters. And so I make a motion to move item 5 to item number 2.
So moved. Second.
Been moved, seconded, and tripled.
There you go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the agenda has been modified. Before we get to item 2, consideration of the minutes from March 9th of 2023. Do you have any motions?
I'll move the accept as presented.
This has been moved. So I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, we'll move to now new item number 5, or argument on pre-hearing motion filed in the matter of Matthew Clare, Department of Public Safety and Corrections, Office of Police. Docket number 22267-S. Floyd Falcon representing Ms. Clare and Sunday.
Jason, sir, Jason Hessick.
Okay, Jason, Hesse representing the,
Good morning, sir. I appreciate y'all taking me early. This is a motion for summary disposition for the alleged failure to institute the investigation within the 15 days as required by Rule 12.18. I went ahead and the documents we're going to use are referenced are already part of the records in various places. Number one is the disciplinary letter of suspension signed by the colonel. Then we had the use of force dated April 24th, signed off on, he signed on 25th. The offense incident report also dated the 24th. It was e-signed on the 27th. The arrest report is dated the 27th, e-signed on the 27th and received by Brian Boudreaux on the 28th. Colonel Davis's email to Lieutenant Colonel Kamen indicating that the investigation was approved. And it's the next one is the letter from Battle to Trooper Claire confirming the investigation began on May 16th. So the critical issues, the critical dates for y'all consideration, all that having been said, is all contained in Major Williams wrote an email to Colonel Kamen dated on May 16th, confirming that Captain Smith was notified of the incident on April 28th. And Major Williams was notified by Captain Williams also on April the 28th. So at the very latest, the start date of the 14 days. I think it started early when he submitted the other items and so forth, but we have made it sort of interesting. We have the major's email specifying that they received it, and he and Captain Smith received it, the information, and reviewed it on the 28th. The appeal was, I mean, the disciplinary action, the disciplinary investigation. I apologize for stuttering. I'm just in severe pain. The investigation was approved by the colonel and started by Lieutenant Kamen on the 16th. So that we
I mean, how?
18 days late. 18 days.
Total 18 days or 18 days?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Total 18 days or 18 days late?
No, a total of 18 days, so it's 3 days late. The rule 12.18, y'all all familiar with it, y'all rule. In the case when there's no formal complaint filed, which was this case, the appointing authority shall, it's underlined, cause an investigation. I guess it's me underlining that, but I underlined it to myself. Shall cause the investigation to be initiated within 15 calendar days of the date the internal affairs, the troop or section commander or anyone above that in the chain of command learns of the incident. Our contention is that it was even before the 28th, but very specifically in Lieutenant Colonel Kamen's, Major Williams' letter to Lieutenant Colonel Kamen. He says, in attached the narrative pertains to the use of force event of April 24th. Captain Smith was notified of the incident on the 28th, and he advised me on the same day of in a telephone conversation. I have all his other documents, but that's the critical one because Major Williams confirmed the dates. I was here last time and you had an argument about this, and there was a lot of discussion about when it started and when they got the notice. The letter to Colonel Kamen by Major Williams makes it, all these other documents are interesting, but this letter sums it all up, and it just reflects that it was not initiated within the 14 days as required by Rule 12.18.
But there is also a longstanding rule, Commission, that obviously the department will have its position on whether it was more than 14 days or not, but let me assume, for the purposes of my question, that it was more than 14 days. Let's assume it's undisputed that it was more than 14 days.
Right.
There's a longstanding rule in this commission that the fact, if we assume it to be a fact, that it was more than 14 days does not necessarily negate the discipline. We take it into consideration in evaluating that discipline, but it's not necessarily a negating factor for the discipline. I understand what the rule says about shall.
I was gonna say, if that's been a long-standing rule, I hadn't seen it, Your Honor. Can you tell me where it might be found?
We've enforced that rule in numerous times, including if you were at the last council, at the last commission meeting. I don't think it was the one before the last, I think at the last commission.
I think it
meeting,
was at the last commission meeting.
We enforced that same longstanding rule in the last commission meeting and said we will look at it. We will consider it, assuming you're right that it's more than 14 days. We will consider it in our evaluation of the discipline imposed. But how can at a motion for summary disposition, we resolve the rest of the question, not the question of was it more than 14 days? How can we resolve the rest of the question of what was the reason for the delay, what impact that had, what prejudice was suffered? Those are all things we have to look at least according to the previous rulings of this commission, before we would say discipline is set aside. So how can we do that at a motion for summary disposition?
I'm unfamiliar. I understand what you're saying. I heard the argument last time. I'm going on rule 12.18. And y'all have to decide, how you're gonna do it, and then we'll see if the decision was right. I mean, it's apparently, this is, I think, the third time I do this. So it's becoming up more and more. We probably need to have it clarified. The rule says shall.
But that's a question of whether the rule was violated. Assume it was violated.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean that we will set aside this discipline. I'm not saying I agree with your reading of the rule, but if I accept your read of the rule and accept the fact that it was violated.
I understand what you're saying. And one last comment, and I'll just be quiet. But it doesn't say anything. What can you do? Throw out the invest? I don't know. If they violate the rule, does it mean nothing and nothing happens? Or can you throw out the investigation? What do you do?
We have the ability to take various steps that might include those things, but there are factors that we have to consider before we make that decision.
And I'm not trying to say not to, but when we have something that appears to be black and white to me, I feel obligation to bring it up in a motion.
I'm not being critical. I'm not being critical of the fact that you're asserting the defense. I'm just asking you the question of, but is there a way we can get there on a summary disposition is the question I'm asking. If there are issues, factual issues that we have to consider, if you accept.
I look at it as if an automobile accident happens on the 366th day, not in leap year, but on other years, on the 366 days, when that time runs, that's it.
That's it. That is true.
And I think that's what this rule implies, and we will try and get a clarification of it somewhere along the line. But that's what I sort of equated to that situation, just the 1 year prescriptive period. I'll say this is a 14-day prescriptive period to get this done.
I understand. So, but relative to the next question, they disagree with my understanding of how we, I'm not saying that it's critical. You may disagree with my understanding of how we've handled it in the past and may or may not handle it that same way here, but do you have anything you can tell me relative to, if I am right on how we've applied this rule, how can I resolve in a motion for summary disposition questions like, what was the reason for the delay? What prejudice was suffered? What impact it ought to have on the discipline? I don't see how.
I understand what you're saying. The only thing I'm going to assert to you is the last one I had where I raised it, we were successful, and y'all dismissed the appeal on that basis. I wish I could remember the fellow's name, but it was about 4 or 5 months ago, and because they had to pay attorney's fees, that's why I remember.
I remember that one. I don't remember that being the basis for the dismissal, but I'm getting old, maybe my memory's getting bad, but was that after a summary disposition or was that after a trial?
I believe it was a summary disposition. I really apologize. I don't
No, that's
remember.
okay. I don't-
specifically.
I don't recall that and would doubt that it would be done on a summary disposition based on our previous rulings in these types of cases.
Okay, I just asked, and I just asked the commission to give some, well, is there any repercussion? If it doesn't mean anything, is it any repercussion? What's the
I didn't say it
repercussion?
didn't mean anything. I said the factors we have to consider
I
to determine
understand.
what it means.
I
It
understand.
might mean a dismissal, a rejection of the discipline. It could mean that. But my point is, it doesn't necessarily mean that. And we got to look at those factors and consider them, in my view, after we have all the evidence.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to
You
be,
disagree that it's been more than 14 days. Let's cut to the chase on that.
I do disagree, sir.
What's your basis and what's the facts for this disagreement?
So going off of Louisiana State Police Rule 12.18B, we have, and this is similar to what we discussed at the last meeting, the learns of the incident. In this case, Captain Jason Smith was the commanding officer in this matter. As you can, if you look at what Mr. Falcon has marked as number 2 in his packet, you'll see that Jason Smith signed off on the use of force report on May 2nd, 2022. As part of our opposition, we also included a letter from Captain Smith where he stated that he was able to review the use of force report and the video surrounding the case on May 2nd, 2022. Our position is that May 2nd, 2022 was the point that Captain Jason Smith. Sure.
What's your basis for arguing the admissibility of that letter at this proceeding?
That it is a exhibit that we attached to this that was provided to, and I understand what you're saying, Chairman. You're not, if I had the ability to call a witness for this, I would have called Captain Smith for this, and I apologize for not getting a certified copy of that letter or a statement from him on that, sir. I would have,
If it's deemed reliable, I think is what the rule provides. We could-
Yes,
we
sir.
could Consider it, but, okay, so let's assume we deem it reliable, so you can talk about it. We have to obviously make that decision whether we will deem it reliable, but go ahead and talk about it.
yes, sir. So Captain Smith stated in that letter that he reviewed all the documentation on May 2nd, 2022. That information was sent up to headquarters, and the IA investigation was started on May 16th, 2022. There is a additional factor I wish for the commission to take into consideration. This is that one of these allegations is that Trooper Clare did not turn on his body-worn camera when he was in the prison. Because of that, even though we had a report from Trooper Clare, there was some time delay in being able to get videos from the prison that Captain Smith also reviewed as part of this. So what we're arguing is that May 2nd, 2022 is the date that the clock should start running for the 14-day time limitation. We've had discussions before about moving on from that the prejudice and going over that time, and I think the chairman has spoken about that today. So I'm gonna leave it to that. Is that
Any questions? There being no questions, we entertain a motion to go into executive session in order to discuss allegations of misconduct.
I'll move.
Move. I can take a roll call. vote.
Brian Crawford,
Yes.
Monty Montalvo,
Yes.
Vernell Neville,
Yes.
Jared Ricky,
Yes.
Aubrey Cole,
Yes.
and Euless Simeon.
Okay, we're going into executive session. That means not only do you take your person out of the room, but please all of your belongings positioning yourself.
Thank you, sir.
You get the officer to maybe move to that chair, so we got a cleared line of vision to Mr.
Yes, sir.
Falcon if he ends up speaking. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that.
Entertain a motion to come back into public session.
Move.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Brian Crawford.
Yes.
Monty Montalvo,
Yes.
Cornell Neville,
Yes.
Jared Ricky,
Yes.
Aubrey Cole,
Yes.
and Eunice Simeon.
Yes. I will make a motion to deny the request for summary disposition based on Rule 12.20, which deals with how the commission is to handle, even if we assume for the purposes of the motion that there was a violation of Rule 12.5. 12.20 requires that what the commission do is, I'll just read it, any disciplinary action taken against the Louisiana State Trooper in violation of these rules, including 12.5, may be reduced, modified, or reversed. by the
12.18 is the rule that's in question. 12.8,
I'm sorry, 12.18, I'm sorry.
not 12.5.
My apologies. 12.18, including 12.18 may be reduced, modified, or reversed by the commission in accordance with 13.20. Based on that discretion, there are factors that we have to consider before we can make that decision. Those factors cannot be determined in a summary disposition. It's not speaking to the merits of what transpired on the discipline, but just to whether we can do it summarily. And I move that we deny it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Yes, I'm gonna go back to using the same numbers that were on the agenda. So I'm gonna reference number 2, even though it's the third business item we're considering. Number 2 is consideration of a motion by Commissioner Rique authorizing exception to existing job duties of WAEs approved by state police. Yet performing public safety tasks throughout the state are determined by the appropriate body.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Y'all may remember in prior several months, I've made some motions and y'all were kind enough to go along with them to change the WAE positions to allow them to work during Mardi Gras. And now we're going to change that to where they can work with any in any public service, public safety realm, due to the sheer reality that there's not enough troopers right now to handle all the work that needs to be done with that. Colonel.
Yes, good morning, Commissioner. Good morning, Commissioners, and congratulations as well and welcome to our newest appointed Commissioner, Mr. Cole. I want to say thank you for the opportunity to come and address you this morning. As we know from our previous meeting, this has been a topic of discussion that hit the table, hit our board. I'm sorry, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Shavaz Cameron, the Assistant Superintendent Chief of Staff. I apologize. But again,
I was so busy looking, at stuff, I didn't stop you beforehand.
Yes,
You
sir.
re-identify yourself, but I always do.
My apologies, sir, my apologies. But again, I just wanted to come myself and Colonel Hasselbeck to just thank you for the opportunity to address you in reference to the request and consideration to add some special descriptions or what have you to the WAE job duties. As you know, with the common discussion that we've been having with our lack of personnel, this would definitely help us in the scope and the line of work that they do to use them and utilize them in needs where we may be short and lacking resources to supply our troopers to work in these public safety requests in different areas. So thank you again this morning for having this discussion and considering it to approve, to allow us to use these WAE positions also in needs where we can supply additional resources for public safety reasons.
Thank you. And I know you and I have had this conversation numerous times, but just for the record, we'll go ahead and say it. WAE is a temporary part-time Band-Aid solution to the problem that we're realizing right now. And I just want to make sure we're all in agreement with that. We all understand it that way, that when numbers get back up, we need to look at WAE for many reasons, but hopefully when we get the numbers back up where they need to be, we can look at minimizing or doing away with WAE when we get to that position.
And I thank you for bringing that up because I wanted to also add as part of this discussion, Colonel Davis in our department was present the other day, I believe Tuesday at the Appropriations Committee. One of the things that was discussed was his commitment to having 2 academies a year. We currently are at 43, 42 cadets in the academy today. And it is our goal that with the approval of the legislature that we can continue to build in these academies to bring up the numbers within our ranks so that we're not coming before you every month or now in June or July to request for approval of the WAE current positions. We are looking at that like we spoke about before, every day evaluating those positions and seeing where we can best supply our resources and spread our troopers now, where we're getting requests from various local government agencies, New Orleans in particular, Shreveport. We're supplying additional troopers to work where crime is increasing. This is definitely a need, and we appreciate the ability and consideration to allow us to use our WAEs, especially when there are conditions that call for us to use them where we can. Please note, I think we are very aware that our WAEs are retired troopers. The commissioned WAEs are retired state police personnel who come with a wealth of knowledge and training already. So it's actually a plug and play in most cases where we don't have to go and hire someone, train them all up over again, and then hope that they can go out and do the job that we expect of our law enforcement officers. So again, thank you.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. And let me just say, and I do plan to vote, but it's mentioned by the chair every day. We so with myself. The concern being the same one I think I expressed when this issue came up last time. So I'm not gonna waste a lot of time being over the concern is that we need to get to where we have full-time troopers. I understand that's not completely within y'all's control, working on it. Now you said you got 42 cadets currently. What do y'all, we're not picking out anybody in particular, but what do y'all anticipate will actually successfully?
We'll graduate. We're hoping all 42. We were hoping all.
You're hoping. We're talking about past statistical information.
What's your attrition rate in the academy?
What do you anticipate?
I would have to get back with you on the exact numbers on that.
But whatever it is, it's gonna be something less than 42. Right, so having 2 academies a year would be a wonderful move.
80 roughly, yeah.
And we need to get the funding to allow, I understand it's a funding issue, but we need to get the funding. Anybody who's got any stroke with the legislature on that issue needs to do it. We have got to get to the point where we can bring in enough qualified people who have the proper disposition on how to handle this very important job. And 95% or more of the people who are doing it have that proper disposition. But we have to make sure we get enough people in and we get the right people in to do this job. That's my first comment. It's got to be a temporary thing. And I know Commissioner Rick agrees with that as well. The other concern I have is, in fact, allowing these WAEs and expanding their ability to do additional things, which is what we're about to do, and which I will vote in favor of, also hurts you keeping troopers because they now know I can retire and I can become a WAE, I can get my retirement benefits, and I can continue working and doing the same thing I was doing before and making both retire. So it's a double-edged sword, and we have to recognize that. And, like I said, I'm not gonna talk long on it, but I just express those concerns.
No, Mr. Chairman, I hear you loud and clear, and if it matters at all, we share the same sentiments. In most cases where we're using this added discretion, it's very rare. Mardi Gras, special details. We're called and tasked to handle a ton of special events across the state, mainly in New Orleans. So I can tell you that we will be mindful of that and evaluating where we're using this additional approval, if approved, to allow us to use our WAEs. And please, we want to be held accountable. So if you see, or if there's a situation where we need to readdress this, please, we're here to make those adjustments as needed.
Better than that, I'm a statistics kind of guy. So I want y'all to keep statistics and I want y'all to provide them to our executive director as to how much use, what are y'all using for? How much time is being spent on safety issues as opposed to what traditionally y'all have been using? Let's keep that data. Let's look at it. Let's evaluate it so that we're not knee-jerk reacting. We're actually really considering these issues. Okay.
Will do. Yes, sir.
I think just to carry along with the commissioner's statement, make sure that the WAEs know that this is a window that's closing. So we can avoid the potential of, the chairman said, somebody that's got the ability to retire, then turn around and think they're going to loop right back into a WAE position. I mean, I don't blame them for doing it. It is, they need to understand that that's not really a long-term plan and that this is a window that's going to close. and get the
Absolutely.
Numbers where they need to be.
Yes, sir.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Crawford.
So Colonel, and so just while we're on the topic of, we talked about the budget being an issue to have additional class per year, but what about the recruiting efforts themselves? So I think we've seen the national perspective on this as being tougher to recruit law enforcement officers. So out of this class of 42 that we've had, how many applicants did we have, I guess? So what is that ratio of how many applied and how many get funneled down and we actually have a class? Because saying we want to have a class of 240 plus and having enough applicants too, I just want to make sure that we've got that pipeline opened up and if there's anything we can do on the commission to help with that recruiting effort and allow you a greater ability to do that, to extend your reach. We want to know about that.
Yes. And
Good, real quick to interrupt.
yes, sir.
I'd like to add quality.
Absolutely. And that was my question. I mean, because when you look at your applicant pool, you eliminate some that don't even meet the minimum qualifications, first of all, that you have. But once you get to that minimum qualification, are you by the time you reach that one that you get, did you go through 20 or did you go through 10 to get to that one? It's kind of what I'm looking for.
Yeah. So, and I thank you for that question. I would tell you in our last cadet selection, our last process for cadet class 102 that's currently in, we probably had a pool starting at about just over 200 folks that were applicants. By the time we were down to past the backgrounds and considering selection, we were just over 100. Not many. Those numbers have dropped tremendously compared to previous years and applicants. And we're seeing that shift not just with state police, but by the time we get to that one that's selected, we've gone through this last class about 100, just over 100 applicants to consider. And you're right, the standards and the quality of applicants that are coming through now, that's the hurdle that we're running into. The folks are not as interested in working in this line of work as it once was. Colonel Davis spoke about it at the Appropriations Committee the other day. As far as recruiting, we can be here for the next couple hours, and I'm going to be mindful of the chairman's time and your time, but we are not sitting on our hands as it relates to recruiting. We were at a conference and we talked to our other partners with state police agencies across the state, and everybody's fishing in the same pool. We are sharing applicants from our locals, our federal levels. We're just trying to find those that have the heart and desire that want to work in this noble profession. And it's challenging these days. I worked in recruiting back in 2004 and we had over 1,000 applicants then. Now we're if we get 150, we're doing good. So I don't want you or the commissioner or the community to think that we're not trying. Our recruiting department is getting pressed hard, and we've actually added and onboarded and accepted, approved another form of recruiting that works directly with our military partners to look at those that are coming back or that are not about to be discharged from the military, where we have a direct access to them. So my challenge, being that I was once in recruiting, is that we are not just sitting back. We're going above and beyond. We're hitting and going into our communities. But as Colonel Davis once said, we're going beyond high school now. We're going trying to hit the junior high schools to get them early on, to recruit them and get them interested in law enforcement. We've been speaking at numerous schools here lately. not only just to talk about public safety, but to get those that may be interested in to see what we do. I'm about to host a tour at our headquarters for a group of high school students. So we're trying to do things that would lure and attract quality applicants.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other? Move. Discussion from here. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Move to the next item on the agenda. Discussion of WAE demographic information that I've requested. This information has been provided to me. I've had the opportunity to take a look at it. And this is a public document. If anybody wants to have access to it, I'm sure they can make a request and we can make it available. I'm not gonna spend a lot of my time going through all the statistics. But some of the statistics not in the not only in WAEs, but in the agency itself, scream out about some things. Scream out about the fact that state police is 6% women. Of your WAEs are women. And I understand there's historical reason. Your WAEs tend to be people who have been in the force, had been in the force longer, and therefore, I know y'all are making the right moves. We gotta be conscious of what our community looks like when we're trying to get the right qualified people, but also keep that in mind as well. Your demographics on your WAEs on the basis of race almost mirror your statistics insofar as the police is concerned itself. In fact, you're doing a little bit better insofar as the breakdown between whites and African Americans in your WAEs. You're still running, the agency is still running 16%.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'll speak to that. Those numbers are, as you know, from the last several years, this has been a thorn in our side. We're trying to replicate and show that we are representing the communities that we serve. As you see the numbers, I mean, 53 women within our department, that is nothing that we brag on. We're working every day to.
You can't brag.
No, sir. And trust me, it hurts to see that, but we're working on it, and we're working to make it better and trying to attract quality applicants. I want to say we may have 4 females currently in our academy today. I could be wrong. Yes, sir.
And I'm not saying that's necessarily in your control, but what I am saying is all too often, and I'm saying that is occurring with you guys, but all too often it's easy to say, well, they just don't apply. Sometimes we have to make extra efforts to get people to be mindful of that.
Absolutely, and we've taken that into consideration, sir.
Mr. Chair. And so speaking about women specifically though, and so I know you have a physical agility test as part, and that's traditionally been a challenge for female applicants in public safety as well as it was for fire and police across the state. So do you know, and can you get us what those rates are of the number of women who have applied and then where they either succeeded in becoming part of the class or where they fell out of the process somewhere?
I'll get those numbers to you. I think I
I'm just
spoke to our executive director, Jason and Erica about it, and we were looking at trying to get a laser pinpoint look at those applicants that are coming in on the application process. So we've been in discussion about it. It's on our forefront and our concern to address. And we're using that as well to push our recruiting efforts to reach out to to our athletic programs, to various other organizations that we can pinpoint and target our demographics as it relates to gender or females.
I know that some of the other large law enforcement and firefighter agencies across the country, when they were having challenges with female applicants passing the physical agility test, they initiated a mentoring and coaching prior to them actually going to the academy or even becoming an applicant, just if they expressed interest, so they would know how they needed to prepare themselves physically leading up to that eventual test. And they saw great success in that. So that'd be something that I would be interested in if we were doing something like that or thinking about implementing it.
And I'll tell you, our training academy, they're doing a great job. There is no reason or excuse any applicant should have today with not knowing what to expect. That stuff is listed on our website at lsp.org. There's videos that show what the expectations are so that you're not surprised when you come in. When our recruiters are reaching out, that's part of the conversation that they're having on the physical fitness side of it, is we're not just going to have a conversation about your interest in coming in the department, but physically you have to be prepared to pass the test in order to stay in the process. So those things are the talking points that we and our recruiters are using as we are out here recruiting, trying to find the best applicants.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else? On the statistical information, I would still be interested in discussing with the executive. And getting some more statistical data on actual troopers and DPS personnel that received some of the Mardi Gras assignments. Got some raw numbers on how many there were, but none of the demographic information relative.
I can speak to that if you like, Mr. Chairman. I want to say Colonel Hasselbeck is here as well, and that's falls under his shop as the detailed commander of the Mardi Gras detail. And I want to say, Colonel Hasselbeck, you want to speak to the Mardi Gras assignment?
Yeah, I believe we had 4 WAEs work. The Mardi Gras
I'm not
detail.
talking about WAEs, I'm talking about regular state troopers and DPS employees assigned. We've got special assignments.
So I could-
Things like Mardi Gras where this is substantially higher pay, as I understand.
You talking about extra duty details, sir? Yeah, there
I know
is.
about the 4.
Yes.
Yeah, the main two assignments for Mardi Gras we use extra troopers for is the Endymion Ball as well as the Orpheus Ball. Endymion Ball roughly requested about some 80 personnel, and Orpheus, we probably had about 50 personnel assigned to that detail from all over the state. WEs worked the Endymion Ball. I don't have the numbers on Orpheus, but we had troopers, I can tell you, in addition to the 125 that were assigned to New Orleans. We had to pull from all over the state. That's why that was important.
What I'm interested in is demographic information. According to the data I have, is 119 who worked in the Indian extravaganza, 66 who worked Orpheus, 185 who worked in Endymion, and Orpheus total. So I'd like some demographic information.
Specifically, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure, what are you,
Gender.
white males, as I know the
Well,
4,
those are the WAEs, but I'm talking about. I'm
the
assuming
breakdown for the
that's
total 185. Yes, sir. I'm slow. I'm a little slow this morning. I got you now. I got you. Yes, sir. We'll get that for you.
It's not only extra duty, it's substantially better paid during those times, as I appreciate it. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that detail rate varies because of they're paying, we're approving extra over and beyond because of the nature of the detail and getting it filled. Yeah, I don't know the number offhand what they get an hour, but I will get that to you.
But more than just how much an hour, I want the demographic breakdown.
Will do.
Anybody else, anything else on the demographic issues? No, sir. Hearing no further discussion, we'll move to item number 4. In the matter of Russell Graham, Department of Public Safety and Correction, Office of State Police, docket number 22-264S, Mary Ann White representing Mr. Graham.
And that's not, the parties don't have an issue anymore, so the parties are not going to be arguing that matter today. We just didn't know until after the agenda had been filed. So it's solved. Yeah.
Yeah, I called it out.
I
Could have stopped me a little bit quicker.
was stumbling there.
Reflected on your.
Number 6, right?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
you do need to read that one.
In the matter of Michael Richard, Department of Public Safety and Corrections, Office of State Police, docket number 22-265-S, discussion of proposed settlement agreement and presentation by the parties. One of the sets of parties is, are the other parties here, or are you going to just present it? Yeah.
I can present it on behalf of the party, sir. And this is based on numerous discussions that we had over the past couple of weeks, and as well as looking at Trooper Reichardt's record, not only during the time of the initial investigation, but also in 2021, 2022, before his suspension, as well as 2022 and 2023 afterwards. We believe that this is in the best interest of both Louisiana State Police as well as Trooper Reichart. He has, besides these issues, he has been a good employee. He's been a good trooper, and he has been serving the people of Louisiana admirably. He was nominated in 2021 for the ice storm, where he was a communication officer at that time. And he has again done well when he is on duty. He has, looking at the record that was provided, he stopped the. Oh, okay. My apologies. We are asking for the 720 hours originally proposed and finalized in his final letter to be decreased to 360 hours. As part of that, the Louisiana State Police will restore to him 360 hours of back pay as well as benefits. And as part of this agreement, he has agreed that he will dismiss his appeal with prejudice.
Feels that substantial justice is being done by this.
Yes, sir.
I assume they do as well.
Yes, sir.
Can't answer that question. Any discussion? We entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss issues relating to relations.
Yes.
Monty Montalvo,
Yes.
Cornell Neville,
Yes.
Jared Ricky,
Yes.
Aubrey Cole,
Yes.
and Eula Simmons.
Yes. All right. down there?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
All right, we entertain a motion to come back into public session. Been moved and seconded. Take a roll call vote, please.
Brian Crawford,
Yes.
Monty Matalago,
Yes.
Renell Neville,
Yes.
Jared Ricky,
Yes.
Aubrey Cole,
Yes.
and Lewis Simmons.
Yes. At this point, I entertain any motions relative to item 6 on the business agenda in the matter of Michael Repub. Docket number 22265-S.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the settlement between the appointing authority and the appellate. Okay.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes. have it. Takes us to item number 7, consideration of General Circular 230 in State Police Commission Rule 7.22. Mr. Executive Director, was the circular adequately published at time and in sufficient means?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it was.
Do we have any motions?
Make a motion to accept the proposed amendment to State Police Commission Rule 7.22.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Commissioner Lako, generally discuss what it's about to the people that are sitting in the audience.
Sure, the proposal for this amended rule change allows troopers or anyone taking the promotional exam to retain their highest score within that the testing period as opposed to the most recent score. So this rule would allow for you to, if you had if you took the May or December 2022 test and you retake that test in May of 2023, you can retain your last grade that was published on the latest eligibility list as of today. Should you score lower on the May test, right? So if you score lower on the May test, you can retain your test that you test grade that you had in December of 2022.
And as I understand, even though it does allow that, there is a provision that prevents test grades from getting overly stale, because when there is a declaration of the need for a new test, then the old test score will no longer be out.
Currently, the rule is set so that every 2 years we have a mandatory retake, and this rule will only be in place during that mandatory 2 years. This would allow, for troopers or applicants to test more often. If they're tested more often, they're looking at the material more often. If they're studying the material, which, encompasses the district attorney's handbook, state police policy and procedure, Louisiana laws and leadership, not only are they going to make a better supervisor, but they'll make a better trooper, because they're studying those 4 things that are directly within the scope of what we do at state police.
So it's been moved and seconded. Because we are voting on a motion exactly the way it was published in the circular. We don't need to read it.
That's correct.
So, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Takes us to keep looking for you over there.
That's right. We've been fortunate that our deputy director,
Somebody-
right, Erica has been promoted to cameraman / producer of our commission meetings now. So it affords me the opportunity to come back over here and sit next to council. But yes, Mr. Chairman, that leads us to our director's report. Behind tab number 8, you'll find the expenditures of the commission for your review. That's as of yesterday's update. And we are on track. You have any questions about the commission's expenditures? The next item I wanted to update you on was the budget for next fiscal year. Deputy Director Dorsey and I attended the House Appropriations meeting on March 28th and the Senate Finance meeting on March 29th. And there were no issues with with our budget, what in the executive budget that was presented to the committee members by the legislative fiscal analysts who consolidate the presentations and present it for those bodies. There were no questions, so I don't foresee any issues with our budget going forward. Any questions? Another item I wanted to call your attention to, it's behind the expenditures, is a bill, House Bill number 563. We're monitoring that. Representative Shake Snyder and Hilferty have sponsored some legislation that's currently going through the process that would create a law enforcement recruitment incentive fund. So as we're talking about the important need to recruit law enforcement officers in the state, this bill, if approved in its current format, would create a $5,000 payment incentive for recruiting new law enforcement officers within the state. And this would also include state police cadets. Provisions would require repayment should the newly employed officer not meet specific criteria. And most significantly, if they were to voluntarily resign within 2 years. So they would have to repay, and the state would recoup that upfront incentive payment that would be provided. And of course, we're monitoring this and we're complying with the fiscal notes requested by members of the House. And just want to put it on your radar that this is out there. And in consulting with Deputy Director Dorsey and I, we were discussing, it appears that we would be able to, in existing Chapter 6 rules, provide for a process to afford the payments. Because again, although the legislature can commit funds, it's this commission's role to have rules in place for disbursement of funds and payment in the classified service. So we're working together, monitoring that. And if there's any rule that needs to be changed or amended, we would be bringing that to you for consideration.
One of the considerations as we're looking at the potential rule is on the back end. Hopefully all of these people that we provide this incentive to will actually stay and won't voluntarily resign. Make sure when we look at the rules, we build in rules on how that recruitment will take place. For example, outstanding amount of food and that sort of thing.
And the believe built into the legislation, it falls on the Treasury, the state treasurer to recoup and garnish those funds. So should someone leave, I guess they would pull directly from there.
But it'd be a lot simpler.
Sure.
And maybe it's an issue to take up with the legislature before it becomes high. It'd be a lot simpler if the bill included mechanisms that, after a year and a half or so, there can be benefits that they're going to do. That might be a source of. So just some thoughts on ways that we could make the process easier. And hopefully we'd never have to use it. Gotta look at the whole thing.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Next item I just wanted to make note of is that in light of the newly adopted rule change to 7.22, any employee wishing to test this May would need to submit their application to test by the April 24th application deadline. So anyone watching on our YouTube channel now, and we will also make a notice, and I'll put out an email correspondence to the classified members if they would like to test, to do so, apply by April 24th. The other item is the financial disclosure forms, as you are aware, are due by May 15th to the Board of Ethics. Some have already completed theirs, but
Commissioner Rick has to be congratulated.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So those are due by May 15th. So please, yes, those tier 2.1 forms for those that wouldn't be due for Mr. Cole because he was not a member in the calendar year 2022. And lastly is that the next meeting is scheduled for May 11th at 10 a.m. That concludes my report.
Any questions? You're not using it.
I do have a question.
No,
I was
nothing.
appointed December 31st. Am I required to complete this financial disclosure form? I was appointed the last day of the year.
And we'll discuss that, I guess, with the Board of Ethics. I think you were appointed, but I don't think you were sworn in or by that time. So we'll look at that. But you didn't serve and didn't receive any compensation as a board member at that time. So.
Any others? Hey, unless I hear an objection, we can adjourn the meeting.